Commander Masters may not have new cards in its main set, but in these Commander Precons we get a ton of new cards that we feel will pique your interest. I'm Patrick Marlette, your local game guy, and today we'll be discussing our top 10 cards from Commander Masters in no particular order for Commander. Oh, and by the way, thank you Wizards for sponsoring this video. From Eldrazi Unbound, we have Amarthus Ghostfire Initiate. For XX00 legendary creature, Spirit Naga. Amarthus Ghostfire Initiate enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. Whenever you put one or more +1/+1 counters on another colorless creature, you may put a +1/+1 counter on Amarthus. When Amarthus dies, manifest a number of cards from the top of your library equal to the number of counters on it. Amarthus can get big very quickly, and because of that, can let you manifest through your deck to set up combos, get utility pieces, or smack face with an army of tutus. Amarthus is also just one step away from being a pretty decent combo commander. If you can get around the legend rule to get two Amarthus in play and have the copy enter with a counter, both will become infinitely large. When one dies, you'll manifest your deck and win the game with any number of lines. If we get a colorless Sakashima, Amarthus will become much stronger as its own commander. I love +1 counter manipulation list, and Amarthus makes for one of the more interesting legends we've seen to date. Are there any strategies you would employ with Amarthus? Let us know in the comment section below. From Eldrazi Unbound, we have Abstruse Archaic. For 4 generic, 3/4 creature avatar. Vigilance. For 1 generic, tap. Copy target activated or triggered ability you control from a colorless source. You may choose new targets for the copy. Think of all the colorless abilities you activate or trigger in a game of Commander. Now, times that by 2. Abstruse Archaic will let you double up any colorless utility in your list and isn't too hard to find in your green deck since it's a creature. You can also use it as a backup Tawnos for the Sands of Time combo, which is a pretty valid use case against the Drannith Magistrates of the world. This type of activated ability is not new to the world of Magic the Gathering, but having it strapped to a creature is a big deal. Are there any decks you're looking to place Abstruse Archaic in? Let us know in the comment section below. From Eldrazi Unbound, we have Rise of the Eldrazi. For 9 generic and 3 colorless, sorcery. This spell can't be countered. Destroy target permanent. Target player draws 4 cards. Take an extra turn after this one. Exile Rise of the Eldrazi. 12 is a harsh cost for an extra turn spell, but when it's removing something, like a stacks piece, and refilling your hand all at the same time, it starts to look like an excellent inclusion for those extra turn decks. Plus, you'll have a laugh at the sad blue player when you have to remind them that it's an uncounterable spell, though yes, mana drain would have been really fat. Rise of the Eldrazi is certainly not for every list, but extra turn spells don't come around very often, so when we get a new one, it is always noteworthy. From Eldrazi Unbound, we have Skittering Cicada. For 3 generic, 2/2 creature insect. Flash. You may cast colorless spells as though they had flash. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, until end of turn, Skittering Cicada gains trample and gets +X/+X, where X is that spell's mana value. So, Shimmermer number 3? Both the Myr and Urza's Battlethopter are in good company. Skittering Cicada is yet another tool for Shimmer Zur, and can become a massive trampler for player removal in the late game. It's important to note that colorless isn't quite the same thing as artifacts, so you'll lose and gain flash options here, but the Cicada is a fantastic new utility for us Commander players. I always get excited to see generically costed flash enablers come out, and Skittering Cicada with its triggered ability is probably my favorite one to date. Let me know if you're interested in playing with Skittering Cicada and what decks you would use this in. From Eldrazi Unbound, we have Ugin's Mastery. For 4 generic, enchantment. Whenever you cast a colorless creature spell, manifest the top card of your library. Whenever you attack with creatures with total power 6 or greater, you may turn a face-down creature you control face up. Aminatou has had a cute play line of manifesting Omniscience with Scroll of Fate, flickering it with Aminatou and having it re-enter as Omniscience. Play artifact creatures to manifest through your deck, and when you find something you need, swing to flip it. This might be a new staple for some niche artifact decks. Teshar might appreciate this card. Oswald might appreciate this card. I can think of a handful of decks that might appreciate Uggin's Mastery, but let me know how you would manipulate this card in the comments below. From Enduring Enchantments, Battle at the Hell Vault. For 4 generic and double white, Enchantment Saga. Add both 1 and 2 lore counters. For each player, exile up to 1 target non-saga, non-land permanent that player controls until Battle at Hell Vault leaves the battlefield. And at 3 lore counters, create Avacyn, a legendary 8/8 white angel creature token with flying, vigilance, and indestructible. Grasp of Fate has been a nice piece of removal for several years. While double the cost for double the removal could be considered fair, the fact that this will ultimately destroy itself does hurt. However, if you use it with Abdel and another Fiend Hunter effect, you can get infinite flickers. Redundancy has been a weakness of the Sage Abdel deck, and this is a great step forward to fixing that. Sadly, all good stories must come to an end, or in this instance, sagas. However, it does leave you with a flying, vigilant, indestructible 8/8 Angel, which is one heck of a way to end. From Enduring Enchantments, we have Composer of Spring for a generic and a green 1/3 creature Satyr Bard. Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. If you control 6 or more enchantments, instead you may put a creature or land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. Kodama of the East Tree has become a kill on sight card at most tables. Now imagine a Kodama that costs 4 less and doesn't care about costs. Composer of Spring lets you drop whatever land or creature you need pending enchantments. While it may not be as consistent as Kodama, I don't think any high enchantment count decks will be upset about playing a Carpet of Flowers and getting a free Hoarding Broodlord. Now, while I won't say Composer of Spring is the best card from these Commander Precons, it's pretty darn good for a 2 CMC land ramp utility that ultimately puts out creature cards? Okay, I will say it's my favorite though. This is my personal favorite from these sets. This one's so good. From Planeswalker Party, we have Leori Spark-Touched Hunter. For Jeskai, 3/3 legendary creature Elemental Cat. Flying, Vigilance. Whenever Leori Spark-Touched Hunter deals combat damage to a player, choose a Planeswalker type. Until end of turn, whenever you activate an ability of a Planeswalker of that type, copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copies. We haven't had a Super Friends commander that's good enough for cEDH, aside from Wooburg Sisay, in some time. If you build a deck with Jace and Teferi Planeswalkers, you should be able to keep your hand full and bounce any troublesome permanents. If you want to ultimate your Planeswalkers quickly, find Ichor Moon Gauntlet and double proliferate with each Planeswalker thanks to Leori. Super Friends is a strategy I have never built for, although I've seen it played, though Leori is really convincing me to give it a go. I am extremely interested in building this deck out, so hang tight for a deck build here on the channel. From Planeswalker Party, we have Guff Rewrites History. For 2 generic and a red, instant. For each player, choose target non-enchantment, non-land permanent that player controls. Those permanents' owners shuffle them into their libraries. Each player who controlled one of those permanents exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card, then puts the rest on the bottom of their library in a random order. Each player may cast the non-land card they exiled without paying its mana cost. This is one of the cheapest polymorph effects we've seen, and Plarg really likes it. If you have a deck that solely lands, you can use Plarg to find this and get one other card from your deck. Sadly, there is no one card win in Boros quite yet, but when that day comes, there will be a new meme monster deck in town with Guff Rewrites History. Anytime I see a red card with this much text, I know that it's going to be a fun card to cast. Guff Rewrites History is one of the quirkiest spells I've seen in a while, and I love that it's at instant speed. From Sliver Swarm, we have Titan of Littjara. For 4 generic and double blue, 6/6 Creature Illusion. As Titan of Littjara enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Titan of Littjara is the chosen type in addition to its other types. Whenever Titan of Littjara enters the battlefield or attacks, you may draw a card for each other creature you control that shares a creature type with it. If you do, discard a card. Toski and Frostfang are great draw engines. However, if you're playing a deck where you don't want your creatures to attack, say Elf Ball, then Titan of Littjara is a better choice. It will also be very easy to find in Simic Elf Ball list thanks to your creature tutors. I'm interested to see if this is the kick Elf Ball needs to become more prominent again. While 6 CMC might sound like a lot on paper, bear in mind you're getting this draw effect as soon as this spell resolves, and it also happens to be a 6/6 beater, which is not too shabby. Again, I'd like to thank Wizards of the Coast for sponsoring this video, and of course for what is likely my next Commander deck. I love Colorless List and Suladok. It's so good. But again, I'm Patrick Marlette, your local game guy, and for more news and updates on your favorite TCGs, subscribe to LGG, and if I may be so bold, if you'd like to send this video along to the next gamer with a like, it'll go a long way. Thank you so much.